Welcome, dear listener, wherever you are in the world, whatever kind of day you have carried to this moment. You can let it rest beside you now. Like a cloak set gently on a chair, there is nothing to fix tonight, nothing to solve, only a slow, quiet journey, meant to soften the edges of the day and guide you towards sleep. If you like, take one easy breath in and let it out even more slowly. Feel your body sink into the bed. Let the muscles around your eyes loosen. Let your shoulders drop just a little. And as your breathing finds a steady rhythm, imagine that the room around you begins to blur at the edges, like a painting touched by candlelight. In your mind, you are waking up somewhere else, not in the modern world of screens and schedules, but in a small room built of rough stone and timber. The light is dim, not because anything is wrong, but because dawn is only just beginning. A single candle flickers on a low stool, and its flame casts soft shadows that move like slow water across the walls. The air is cool. It smells faintly of wood smoke and earth, and perhaps the warm animal scent of a stable not far away. You lie on a simple mattress stuffed with straw. It is firm and uneven, but not unbearable. A wool blanket rests over you, heavy in a comforting way. You blink once, twice, feeling the oddness of this place, the strangeness of waking in a time that is not your own. And yet, you are safe. This is only a gentle dream, a quiet visit to the Middle Ages, where we can wander without fear, listening to the soft hum of history and letting it lull us into rest. As you sit up slowly, the straw shifts with a dry whisper. Your feet touch a packed earth floor. Cool beneath your soles, you can hear very little, the faint creak of wood settling, the distant rustle of wind against thatch, and then, like a signal that the world is about to begin, a rooster calling from somewhere beyond the walls. That sound, simple and sharp, has echoed across centuries unchanged. You dress in the clothes of an ordinary person, nothing fancy, nothing stiff with embroidery. A tunic of rough-spun wool, a belt of leather, plain hose, and perhaps a cloak if the air feels especially cold. The fabric is scratchier than modern cloth, but it has a sturdy honesty to it, as if it was made to endure long days and many washings. Outside the cottage, the village is still half asleep. The sky is a pale grey blue, and mist clings to the low fields like a thin blanket. You step onto a narrow path of packed mud and straw. In places it is rutted from carts. In others it is smooth where many feet have passed. Day after day, the houses around you are small, with walls of wattle and daub, and roofs of thatch thick enough to keep out rain. Some doors are still shut. Others open as people begin to stir. A woman steps out with a bucket to fetch water. The child, still drowsy, follows at her heel. Somewhere a dog shakes itself awake and pads across the yard, nose to the ground. You can smell the village now, smoke from last night's fire, damp soil, and the sour-sweet scent of animals. It is not a perfume, not something designed to please, but it is real. It is life lived close to the land. Your first task, like so many in medieval times, is to care for the creatures that help your household survive. In a small enclosure, hens cluck and shuffle, their feathers puffed against the chill. You scatter a handful of grain, They peck eagerly, quick and busy, as if their small world is made of simple needs and simple satisfactions. Nearby, a goat stands patiently, watching you with calm eyes. Its milk is precious. Not a luxury, but a quiet kind of wealth. You place a wooden pail beneath it and work slowly, rhythmically, listening to the soft tap of milk against the bottom of the bucket beyond the yard. You can see the larger animal that does the heaviest work, an ox, broad and steady, its breath visible in the cold air. It blinks at you without hurry. It has no interest in history, no care for kings or wars. It only knows the familiar pattern of mornings and fields. As you move through these chores, notice how unhurried the world feels. There are no alerts, no sudden messages, no bright lights demanding attention. The day begins the way it has always begun here, with animals, with breath, with hands doing what hands have done for thousands of years. When the animals are tended, you return to the cottage. Inside, your family or companions begin to wake. The room is small and everything is close together. A hearth sits at the center or along one wall, its ashes still warm from last night. Someone stirs a pot, adding water, perhaps a handful of barley, perhaps a pinch of salt if there is any to spare. The smell is plain, but comforting, like the smell of something that will keep you going. Breakfast is simple: barley porridge, thick and steady, and bread that is darker and denser than modern loaves. The crust is tough, the inside is heavy. It is not the kind of bread you eat for pleasure. It is the kind of bread you eat because you must, because it is a bridge from one day to the next. To drink, there might be small beer or weak ale, safer than water in many places, and mild enough that even children might drink it. It tastes faintly sour, faintly yeasty, more like liquid grain than anything strong. You take a sip and feel it warm you from the inside. As you eat, the candle burns lower, and outside, the light grows a shade brighter. This is a world guided by the sun. Time is not counted in minutes, but in moods of the sky, in the position of light, in the ringing of bells. In many villages, the church bell marks the hours, not to rush you, but to remind you that the day is moving, that prayers and labor belong to the same rhythm. Soon it is time to go to the fields. You step out again, and the village feels more awake. You pass the small church, built of stone, if the village is fortunate, or timber, if it is not. Even in its modest form, it stands as the center of village life. People gather there not only for worship, but for news, for judgments, for weddings and burials, for the turning points that make time feel real. A few villagers nod to you as you pass. No one speaks loudly. Voices in the early morning tend to be gentle. The day is too new for sharp edges. In the fields beyond the homes, the land is divided into long strips. You can see the faint lines where plows have turned the soil in seasons past. Depending on the time of year, you might be sowing, weeding, or harvesting. Medieval farming is not a hobby. It is the slow, muscular conversation between humans and earth. If it is spring, the soil is damp and dark, and you carry seed in a pouch, scattering it with practiced motion. If it is summer, the plants stand higher, and you move through them carefully, pulling weeds, saving what you can. If it is autumn, The work becomes louder, the swish of sickles, the rustle of sheaves, the steady rhythm of gathering what will feed the village through winter. And winter, when it comes, is not romantic here. Winter is a season of endurance, of careful stores, of bread stretched thinner, of candlelight and cold. For now, though it is enough to feel the steady pace of labor. The ox pulls, the plow bites the soil. Your hands guide the tool. Your body warms as you work. You can feel sweat under your tunic, but the air is cool enough to keep it from becoming uncomfortable. As you move, your mind drifts, and that is something medieval life has always allowed. In its own way, the body works, but the mind can wander. It can think of small things, whether the rain will come, whether the bread will last, whether the child with the scraped knee will stop crying by the time you return home. And it can think of larger things too. The stories people tell by firelight, saints, kings, battles, miracles, monsters in the forest. Because even in a simple village, history is not absent. It is simply far away, like thunder beyond the hills. Sometimes that thunder comes closer. A traveler passes through, bringing news. A tax collector arrives, counting grain, measuring, taking a portion for the Lord. A messenger rides by, too fast for conversation, carrying words from one powerful person to another. And the village watches these moments the way you watch weather, knowing it can change the shape of your days. Your local lord is part of that weather. You do not see him often. He lives in a manor house, perhaps a small fortified hall, not a grand castle, at least not yet. But his presence is felt in obligations, days owed in labor, a portion of harvest, fees for using the mill. The oven, the winepress, the system has a name that scholars will later debate and define. But here it is simply life, a web of duties and protections, of expectations that feel as old as the soil. Still, within that web, people find room to breathe. At midday, there is a pause. You sit on the edge of a field and eat what you brought, a piece of bread, maybe a bit of cheese if you are lucky, perhaps an onion whose sharpness makes your eyes water. You drink from a cup. You look out over the landscape. It is quieter than the modern world. The loudest sounds are natural, wind in grass, birds calling, distant voices of others working. Even the tools have a soft rhythm, metal against stone, wood against earth. The sigh of the ox as it leans into its harness. If you listen closely, you may hear the faint bell of the church again. Far behind you, a small reminder that the village is still there, that you are part of something held together by routine. As the afternoon wears on, the light shifts, shadows lengthen, work continues until it can't, until the body says enough, until the sky says the day is closing. And then you walk back. The return to the village at dusk has its own gentle feeling. Smoke rises from chimneys. The smell of cooking spreads through the air, richer now than it was in the morning. A pot of pottage simmers somewhere, made from whatever can be spared: beans, peas, cabbage, leeks, perhaps a bit of bacon fat if the household has it. Sometimes the same pot is topped up day after day, becoming a slow, ongoing meal that changes slightly as ingredients are added. Children run, laughing, their play simple, chasing, sticks turned into swords, stones turned into treasures. Someone mends a fence, someone carries water, someone sits on a low stool, repairing a shoe with patient hands. You step inside the cottage and feel the warmth of the hearth. Dinner is not extravagant, but it is steady. You eat slowly. You feel the comfort of being indoors while the night gathers outside. The candle is lit again. Shadows return, soft and familiar, and as the day ends, stories begin to surface, the way they always do when people are tired. A neighbor might mention a rumor, a new king, a distant battle, a strange illness in a far-off town. The words sound thin and far away. Like a dream you cannot quite remember. Most of the village will never see the great events that fill history books. They will feel them only as ripples, a change in taxes, a shortage of salt, a sudden demand for men to march. And yet, history still belongs to them. It is made of their days, their harvests, their prayers, their quiet endurance. As the fire crackles and the conversation fades, you lie back down on the straw mattress. The wool blanket settles over you again. The room is dark except for the candle, and even that light seems softer now. Take a slow breath in and out. In the medieval night, darkness is complete. There are no street lights, no glowing screens. Outside, the sky is deep and full of stars, brighter than most modern eyes ever see. The village is a small island of warmth surrounded by fields, hedges, and forest. If you listen, you might hear an owl in the distance, a dog shifting in its sleep, the quiet creak of timber as the house cools. If you were to stay awake a little longer in this imagined village, you would notice how medieval nights are arranged around small necessities. Someone checks the latch on the door. Someone sets a bucket near the hearth. A little pile of kindling is placed within reach, so the morning fire can be coaxed back to life without too much struggle. In winter, the embers are guarded as carefully as coins, because warmth is a kind of treasure. Beyond the cottage walls, the wider world sleeps in layers. In the manor yard, a sleepy guard might pace slowly, more from habit than fear, listening for any unusual sound. In the church, a single lamp may burn before the altar, a soft point of light that suggests continuity. The idea that something sacred remains awake even when people do not. And in a monastery some miles away, monks might rise for a night office, their quiet chanting drifting into the darkness and disappearing into the fields like mist. The calendar of this age is also gentle. In its own way, it is marked by seasons, yes, but also by holy days, by the feast of a local saint, by the weeks of fasting and celebration that return each year like familiar songs. Even if you never learn to read, you learn time by repetition. The same prayers, the same harvest tasks, the same ringing bells, the same stories told when the fire is low, and above it all, the sky turns. Patient and immense, people in the Middle Ages look up and see the same constellations you can see if the night outside your window is dark enough. They call them by names of heroes and beasts. They use them to sense direction on a road, or to wonder quietly about God and the world. They do not know the word galaxy, but they know the milky band of stars, and they know it is beautiful. And as you rest there, safe in the gentle dream of another time, you may begin to understand why these slow histories can soothe the mind. The past is far away, and yet it moves at a human pace. It reminds us that days pass, and people endure, and night always comes with its invitation to rest. So let your own night take you now. Let the candle dim in your imagination. Let the sounds grow softer. Let the medieval world fade like a tapestry being folded carefully away. Breathe slowly and sleep when you are ready. Good evening again, dear listener. If you are still with me, let your breathing stay slow and unforced. Like a quiet tide, there is no need to picture every detail clearly. Let the images arrive softly, and if they blur, that is perfectly fine. Sleep does not require sharp focus. It prefers gentle shapes, warm shadows, and a story that moves at the pace of a lantern carried through fog. In the cottage where you have been resting, the night has passed in a simple way. The fire has faded to a red glow beneath grey ash. The candle has burned down to a stub. Its last pool of wax hardened on the stool. And then, as it always does, the morning begins to gather on the horizon. At first, it is only a change in the darkness. The black becomes deep blue. The deep blue becomes a softer shade. A thin line of pale light appears in the narrow space between the shutters. You hear the rooster again, then another, then the low murmur of the village waking like a great animal stretching in its sleep. You rise slowly, the straw beneath you shifting with a dry whisper, and you wrap your cloak around your shoulders. The air is crisp, and your breath briefly shows itself. A small cloud that vanishes almost as soon as it appears. Outside, the village is calm but moving. A woman sweeps the packed earth in front of her door. A man lifts a bucket. The water inside sloshing softly. A child carries a bundle of sticks that seems almost too big for his arms. And yet he manages, step by careful step. This morning is not like yesterday. Today, there is a reason for a little extra activity. It is market day. In many medieval places, the market is not simply a convenience, it is a pulse. It is one of the few regular moments when the wider world brushes against the village. News arrives with carts, new faces appear on the road. Goods that feel almost magical in their rarity. Salt, spices, fine cloth, iron tools, small glass beads may glitter briefly on a stall before disappearing into someone else's hands. And so, after a bite of bread and a swallow of weak ale, you begin to walk. The road is a narrow ribbon of earth, worn by hooves and wheels. It passes between fields and hedgerows. In places, puddles collect, reflecting the pale sky like small mirrors. You walk with others, not in a tight group, but in the loose companionship of neighbors who share a destination. Some carry baskets, some pull small hand carts, some lead a goat on a rope, its hooves clicking softly on stones. As you go, notice the quiet kindness of the countryside. A lark rises and sings. The wind moves through bare branches. The world smells of damp soil and crushed grass. With each step, your body finds a steady rhythm, and the rhythm begins to soothe you. Walking like this is almost a form of prayer, even if no words are spoken. After a while, the landscape changes. The houses become closer together. The road widens. You begin to see more smoke rising from chimneys. And then, ahead of you, the town appears. It is not a modern city. There are no tall glass buildings, but to someone from a village, it feels busy and large. The outer walls, if the town has them, stand as a rough boundary, stone or timber, with a gate where people pass through. If there is a moat, it is not a grand ring of water like in storybooks, but a practical ditch, sometimes muddy, sometimes half full. You enter with the others, and the sounds shift around you. There is the clop of hooves on cobblestone, the creak of cart wheels, the calling voices of vendors, not loud like a stadium, but lively like a flock of birds. The air smells different here. More smoke, more cooked food, more human presence. And yes, the sharp unpleasantness of open drains. Medieval towns are full of life, and life is never perfectly tidy. The market square is already forming. Stalls are set up with cloth stretched over wooden frames. Baskets of onions and turnips are stacked like small hills. A butcher sharpens his knife, the metal making a thin, singing sound. A fishmonger lays out pale silver bodies on wet boards. A baker pulls loaves from an oven, and the smell of warm bread rolls across the square like a blessing. You move slowly, letting yourself drift from stall to stall. Here is a man selling rough wool cloth, folded in thick layers. Here is a woman offering small bundles of herbs, sage, thyme, mint, tied with string. Here is a potter with simple bowls, their surfaces matte and earth-colored, made to be used every day. Here is a tinker with bits of metal, needles, buckles, small hinges for doors. Coins clink softly, hands gesture, people bargain, but not always harshly. For many, trade is a careful balance between need and pride. A farmer does not want to be cheated. A merchant does not want to lose profit. And between them, the bargaining becomes a familiar dance, sometimes tense, sometimes playful. If you look up, you can see the church in the town, larger than the village chapel. Perhaps it has a stone tower. Perhaps it has stained glass. Not in every window, but in a few, where colored light falls like spilled jewels on the floor inside. The bell may ring, deep and steady, marking the hour, calling people to remember that even the marketplace belongs to God. Near the church, you notice another kind of building, the guild hall. Guilds are one of the quiet engines of medieval town life. They are groups of craftspeople and merchants who protect their trade, set standards, train apprentices, and care for their members in times of illness or death. A guild can be strict, sometimes even harsh, but it is also a kind of community. In a world without modern insurance or safety nets, being part of a guild can mean the difference between survival and ruin. You do not need to analyze this. Just feel it as part of the town's texture, another thread in the tapestry. As you wander, you pass a workshop where a blacksmith works. His forge glows orange-red. The heat rolls out into the street, even on a cool day. He lifts a piece of iron from the coals and hammers it on the anvil. The sound rings out, clear and rhythmic. Hammer, hammer, hammer. Each strike is like a heartbeat, steady and reliable. Sparks jump and fade. Tiny stars falling to the ground. A little farther on, you hear a different sound, the scrape of a plane on wood, the soft rasp of a saw. A carpenter is shaping a beam. Nearby, a cooper fits wooden staves together into a barrel. A woman at a doorway spins wool, her hands moving with calm skill, the spindle turning like a small planet. This town is a place of making. In a medieval world, so much is handmade. Clothes, tools, furniture, wheels, nails, candles, even parchment for books. The objects around you are not mass-produced and anonymous. They carry the marks of individual hands. A small unevenness in a bowl, a stitch that is slightly crooked, a knot in a wooden plank. These imperfections are not flaws here. They are signatures, quiet proof that a person once sat and worked and breathed while shaping this thing. If you feel your own mind drifting towards sleep, let it drift. The town can continue to move around you without your full attention. Imagine yourself sitting for a moment on a low stone near the edge of the square, letting the market sounds wash over you like a gentle river. Hear the murmur of voices. Hear the occasional laughter. Hear the bell in the distance. Hear the steady hammer of the blacksmith. And if you like, breathe in slowly and out, not far away. A group of travelers gathers near an inn. Inns in this world are practical places. They offer food, drink, and a bed, often in a shared room, to anyone with coin. The smell inside is a mix of ale, smoke, wet wool, and the rich tang of stew. A minstrel may sit by the hearth, plucking a lute. His melody is simple, repeating, meant to entertain without demanding too much attention. You step inside briefly, not to stay, only to warm your hands and feel the atmosphere. The room is dim. A few candles burn. The hearth crackles. People speak in low voices, leaning close so they can be heard over the background hum. A merchant counts coins with careful fingers. A tired traveler rubs his eyes. A serving girl carries a bowl of pottage, steam rising like a soft veil. You could remain here, listening, and it would be easy to fall asleep even in the corner of this medieval inn. There is something deeply comforting about a shared warmth, a shared shelter from the outside air, a sense that, for a little while, everyone is simply human, simply tired, simply glad to be indoors. When you step back out, the sunlight has grown stronger. The market is at its busiest now. A farmer argues gently over the price of salt. A child begs for a sweet. A priest walks through the crowd, nodding to familiar faces somewhere. A dog weaves between legs, hopeful for scraps. And then, as you watch the people move, you realize something quiet and important. Most of them will never be famous. Most of them will never appear by name in a history book. And yet, they are history. They are the ones who bake, who build, who mend, who plant, who carry water, who raise children, who bury the dead, who sing songs and whisper prayers. Without them, there are no castles, no cathedrals, no kings, no wars, no great events at all. The grand stories are built on the small ones. Let that thought be soothing rather than heavy, because it means that the world has always been held together by ordinary days, by meals cooked, by roofs repaired, by hands washing cloth, by feet walking familiar paths. If your own life sometimes feels made of ordinary days, that is not a weakness. It is the human way. Near the center of the square, a clerk sits at a small table with a set of scales. In some towns, officials watch the market, checking weights and measures, collecting a small fee, and keeping order when voices rise too high. The clerk's ink-stained fingers move with practiced care. He dips a quill, scratches neat lines onto parchment, and turns the page with the seriousness of someone handling treasure. Writing is not common here. Many people cannot read their own names. So the very idea of a ledger feels like a kind of quiet power, held by a few and trusted by the many. A little farther on, you notice the money. Some coins are bright and newly minted, edges sharp. Others are worn smooth, passing from palm to palm until the images on them become faint as dreams. A few traders test the metal by rubbing it between finger and thumb, not because the method is perfect, but because habit becomes reassurance. Silver, copper, sometimes a hint of gold, all of it heavy with meaning. A single coin can be a day's wage. A small handful can mean a winter survived. No wonder people count slowly, then tuck their coins deep into a pouch and tie the string twice. On a bench near the church porch, an old man sells pilgrim badges. They are small pieces of metal pressed into simple shapes, saints and shells and tiny crosses. A pilgrim might pin one to a hat or cloak as proof of a journey to a shrine. Even if you never travel far, the idea of pilgrimage lives in the mind like a distant song. The road to Canterbury, the long walk to Rome, the dream of Jerusalem. In an age where many people live and die near the same fields, the thought of a faraway holy place can feel like a door opening in the imagination. Near the edge of the market, you see a young apprentice carrying a bundle of leather. His master calls him back, not angrily, but firmly. The boy returns, cheeks flushed, and sets the leather down at the stall. He watches the older craftsman cut and stitch with steady hands, learning without formal lessons, learning through repetition, through being corrected, through making small mistakes that do not ruin the whole. Apprenticeships are slow education. They are the patient art of becoming useful, one careful motion at a time. As the afternoon comes, you begin to leave the town. Your basket is not overflowing, but perhaps it holds something small and useful, a pinch of salt, a new needle, a ribbon, a piece of cheese. The road home feels quieter now. The market noise left behind like a fading song. Your steps are steady. The sky is wide. The fields stretch out again. On the way back, you pass a small shrine by the roadside. A simple wooden cross or a stone marker. Someone has left a few wilted flowers there. In this age, the boundary between the everyday and the sacred is thin. People pray as they walk. They make signs of the cross before a journey. They speak of saints as if the saints are neighbors who live just beyond the next hill. You do not need to believe any particular thing to feel the calm in that habit. There is comfort in ritual, comfort in repetition, comfort in doing the same small actions that millions have done before you. When you return to the village, the sun is lowering, smoke rises again from the cottages, the animals are being brought in. The air smells of supper, of wood, of home. You step inside your cottage, and the warmth of the hearth greets you like a familiar hand on your shoulder. Tonight, perhaps someone tells a story about the town. Perhaps you share what you saw. Perhaps you simply eat and let silence do its gentle work. And when the day is finally done, you lie down again on the straw mattress. The blanket settles over you. The room darkens. The village grows quiet. Take one more slow breath in and out. The hearth settles into a softer crackle. Your eyelids grow heavier. Nothing needs to be solved tonight. Only rest. If sleep is close now, let it come. If it is still a little far, that is fine too. We will keep walking through this medieval world at the pace of a calm heartbeat, and the past will keep whispering softly, like wind in grass, until your thoughts loosen and drift, and the night carries you the rest of the way. Stay where you are, dear listener, and let your shoulders soften. If you are lying on your back, allow the weight of your body to sink a little deeper. If you are on your side, let the mattress hold you like quiet earth. There is nothing you need to do except breathe, slow and steady, as we drift a little farther into the medieval night. In this world, night is not filled with bright electric light. It is darker, thicker, and more complete. When the sun goes down, people do not scroll or stare at screens. They listen to the small sounds that remain. The last murmur of voices, the soft thump of a door closing, the faint clink of a pot being set aside, and then, gradually, the hush. Imagine the village again, now wrapped in darkness. The cottages are low shapes against the sky. Smoke rises in a thin ribbon from one chimney, then disappears. A dog turns in a circle and settles on the hearthstones. Somewhere, a baby gives a brief cry, and a mother answers with a whisper. The fire is banked, not fully dead, just sleeping beneath ash, ready to be woken in the morning. Outside, the lane is quiet. The ground is uneven underfoot, damp in places. There is no smooth pavement, only earth and stones worn by years. The moon, if it is out, paints pale edges onto roofs and fences. If clouds cover it, the darkness feels deeper, and the stars seem like the only lights that belong to the sky. In many towns, there is a curfew bell. It does not mean a modern police order. It is a reminder, a rhythm, a signal that the day has turned. The bell might ring at dusk, and people will say that the cover fire hour has come. The moment when hearths are covered so sparks do not leap into thatch and timber. Fires are precious, but they can also be dangerous. A single careless ember can turn a street into a blaze. So the bell rings, and shutters close. Candles are snuffed. Doors are barred with a wooden beam. The town, for a while, becomes a place of sleep. Yet not everyone rests at once. Somewhere along the wall, a watchman begins his slow walk. He carries a lantern. Not bright, only enough to make a small circle of light. His footsteps are steady. His job is simple and serious: to notice smoke where it should not be, to hear a shout that needs answering, to see a stranger moving where strangers should not move. In many places, the watchman also calls the hour, his voice floating down empty lanes. Listen for it in your imagination. A calm voice in the dark, announcing time as if time itself is another kind of guard. Inside the cottages, the night is shared. Many families sleep in one room. Privacy is rare. Warmth is valuable. People lie close, not because they are sentimental, but because winter is cold and blankets are rough. A child might tuck feet against a parent's legs. A grandparent might sleep near the hearth where a little heat remains. Sometimes an animal is brought inside too, a goat or a chicken, not for comfort, but for safety and survival. If you are picturing this, let the picture stay gentle. It is not meant to be harsh. It is simply a different way of living, shaped by need, habit, and the long, repeating pattern of seasons. Now, let the scene shift slowly, as if you are walking in a dream. Imagine that you are moving through the countryside at night. The road is a faint path. The hedges are dark walls. The air smells of wet grass and soil. Your cloak is wrapped around you, and with each breath, you taste the cold, clean edge of night. Far ahead, you see a small light. It does not flicker like a candle in a cottage window. It is higher, steadier, a torch. Perhaps on a gatehouse, a castle. Castles are not everywhere, and not every castle looks like the neat stone picture on a postcard. Some begin as earth mounds topped with timber. Some are rebuilt in stone. Some are half fortress, half home, but at night, even from a distance, a castle has a certain presence. It rises above the land like a dark ship on a sea of fields. As you come closer, you hear the faint sound of iron, maybe the rattle of a chain, the scrape of a boot. A guard stands at the gate, wrapped in a cloak, spear held upright. He watches the road more out of habit than expectation. Most nights pass without trouble. Still, the guard stays. The drawbridge, if there is one, is usually raised at night. The gate is closed. The castle sleeps in layers. Servants below, men-at-arms near the courtyard, the lord and lady high in the keep. Inside, the air smells of stone and smoke and wax. Torches burn in brackets, their flames wavering. Shadows ripple along walls. The hall, once loud with dinner and talk, is quiet now. The long tables are cleared. Cups are stacked. Dogs curl near the hearth. Somewhere deeper inside, in a chamber with a heavy wooden door, someone is still awake. A clerk, perhaps bent over parchment, or a steward counting supplies, or a lady finishing a line of embroidery by candlelight. The needle moves in and out, small and patient. Each stitch is a tiny act of order in a world that can be uncertain. If you have ever felt soothed by repetitive motion, imagine that needle in and out, in and out, a calm rhythm that asks for nothing but time. Now, let us move again, quietly, to a place where night has its own schedule, a monastery. Monasteries hold the night differently from villages and castles. In many orders, the day is divided into hours of prayer, and some of those hours fall before dawn. The bell that wakes the monks does not ring for market or war. It rings for the quiet work of devotion. Picture the monastery in darkness. The buildings sit around a cloister, a square garden enclosed by covered walkways. The stone is cool. The air is still. In the chapel, one small lamp burns, a constant point of light. Then the bell sounds. Not harsh, not sudden, a steady note that spreads through corridors like a ripple through water. Doors open softly. Sandaled feet step onto stone. Robes rustle. The monks move without hurry. Their faces are calm, their minds still half in sleep. They gather in the chapel, and the chanting begins. The sound is low and even, words in Latin, flowing together like a stream. You do not need to understand the words. You only need to feel their steadiness, the way they rise and fall, the way they hold the dark. This is one of the gifts of the medieval night. It contains more silence, more space, more listening. People live closer to the rhythms of the sky. They notice the moon. They know when stars are bright. They feel the wind shift before rain. And because the night is deep, rest becomes a skill. People learn to surrender to it earlier. They learn to let the day end. They learn to accept that some things can wait until morning. If you want, take a slow breath in now. Count gently to 4 and breathe out, counting to 6. Let your body follow the longer exhale. In the medieval night, the longer exhale is like closing a gate. It signals safety. It signals that you can rest. Even in towns, even with watchmen, even with walls, most nights are simply nights, a time for the body to recover from labor, for the mind to loosen its grip on worry. Of course, there are nights of trouble too. Storms, illness, a shout in the lane, a horse stumbling on a dark road. But those are not every night. Most nights are ordinary. Ordinary is what carries people through history. Think of the millions of medieval nights that passed without drama. A farmer sleeping after planting, a baker sleeping after the oven cooled, a child sleeping after a story by the hearth, a monk sleeping after prayer. So many breaths, so many heartbeats, so much quiet. And in that quiet, the world keeps turning, the river keeps moving, the trees keep lifting their branches toward the stars. The fields wait for dawn. The castle walls stand still. The monastery lamp burns on. If your thoughts are still awake, you can give them something simple to hold. Imagine a single candle flame. It is small. It does not hurry. It leans slightly when the air moves. It straightens when the air becomes still. It makes no demands. It simply burns, giving a soft circle of light. Now imagine that circle of light shrinking, gently, as if the candle is being turned down. The edges of the room soften, details blur. The flame becomes a warm point, then a smaller point, then a glowing ember, then a memory of warmth. And as that light fades, you remain safe, you remain held. The night becomes deeper, not threatening, but protective, like a blanket made of darkness. In a little while, dawn will come again to the medieval world. Roosters will call, fires will be stirred, bread will rise, tools will be lifted, bells will ring. But you do not need to go there yet. For now, stay in this quiet night. Let the watchman walk his slow circle. Let the monks chant softly in the distance. Let the castle sleep behind its gates. Let the village breathe under the stars. And let your own breathing become the only story you need. In and out, slowly, peacefully, until sleep, like a gentle traveler, arrives at your door and steps inside without a sound. Between dusk and dawn, people also measure time in softer ways, not minutes on a clock, but feelings, the deepening blue of the sky, the moment the last bird settles, the first crackle of frost on a puddle. In some places, hours are still counted, but they are counted by candles, by bells, by the slow turn of the stars. Many medieval people sleep in a pattern that might surprise you. They often have a first sleep and a second sleep. The first comes soon after nightfall, when the body is tired and darkness is complete. Then For a little while, in the middle of the night, some wake gently, not fully alert, but quietly present. They might say a prayer, they might check the embers, they might whisper to a spouse, or simply stare at the ceiling and let thoughts drift by like clouds. And then, without fear, they return to rest. If you find yourself awake at night sometimes, you are not strange. You are human. You are sharing a habit that has lived in many centuries. There is no need to fight the wakefulness. You can let it pass through you like a soft breeze. And then, when it is ready, sleep will return. Imagine now a small inn by a crossroads. The building is simple, thick beams and whitewashed walls. A sign swinging outside. The stable is close by, and you can smell hay and horse. Travelers have gathered here before the curfew bell. Not adventurers from stories, but ordinary people with ordinary reasons. A peddler with pins and ribbons in a bag. A messenger with a letter sealed in wax. A pilgrim with worn shoes and a badge on their cloak. Inside, the common room is warm. There is a fire, a pot of stew, and benches polished by countless hands. The talk is low, not dramatic. News is shared the way it always is, in small pieces. A bridge is out on the North Road. A fair is coming on the next Saint's Day. A lord has called for extra labor to repair a ditch. Someone mentions a distant war, but it feels far away. Like weather over another hill, then night deepens. The innkeeper spreads straw in the loft. People lie down where they can. Wrapped in cloaks, the last candle is pinched out, and darkness gathers softly in the corners. For a few hours, strangers breathe together in the same room, united by the simple need to rest. Outside, the world is wider than any one village. The road continues in both directions, disappearing into fields and forests. In the distance, an owl calls, patient and certain. Somewhere, a river slides over stones, making a sound like whispered cloth. Above it all, the sky holds its ancient pattern. Stars arranged in shapes that people have named for centuries. In medieval times, people look up at those stars and feel what you might feel now. Smallness, yes, but also belonging. The same sky covers castles and cottages. The same moon watches kings and shepherds. The same night air touches every face. If it helps, imagine that you are lying on a simple bed in a safe room, listening to the world outside. You can hear a faint wind. You can hear the hush between sounds. You can feel your breath moving, calm and steady, like a slow tide. Let the medieval night keep you company. Let it remind you that rest is older than worry, that sleep has carried countless lives through hunger and harvest, through war and peace, through plague and prayer, and tonight it can carry you too. So if your mind is still wandering, let it wander in a safe circle. Back to the village lane, back to the castle gate, back to the monastery lamp. Each place is quiet now, each guarded by routine and time. And as you follow that circle, slower and slower, you may notice the simplest truth of all. You are warm, you are safe, and you are allowed to sleep. Nothing needs you now. Morning will come when it is ready. Let your eyelids grow heavy and simply let go now too. Take a slow breath. Dear listener, let it arrive gently, like a small wave rolling onto a quiet shore. And as you breathe out, imagine the last bits of your modern day loosening their grip. Tonight we are still in the medieval world, and the medieval world moves at the pace of footsteps. Candlelight and patient hands. In the soft grey of morning, you find yourself near a town, not a grand capital, but a busy place with walls of stone and timber, a gatehouse, and narrow streets that twist like river channels. The countryside behind you smells of wet grass and turned earth. Ahead, the town carries different scents: smoke from hearth fires, yeast from bread, damp wool, and the sharp tang of leather. You approach the gate as other people do, quietly and routinely, because this is a world where travel is common enough to be ordinary, yet still slow enough to be noticed. At the gate a guard stands with a spear, more bored than threatening. He looks you over, not with suspicion, but with the practical gaze of someone watching for trouble. The cart creaks forward, its wheels thick with mud. Two geese argue loudly, as if they own the road. A woman balances a basket on her hip and waits for the flow to clear. When it is your turn, you pass beneath the arch. For a moment the air changes, as if the wall itself holds the town's warmth inside it. Then you are in. The street is narrow, the ground uneven. In places it is cobbled, in places it is packed dirt, and in places it is something in between, worn smooth by time. Houses lean toward one another like old friends. Upper floors jut out above the street, casting shade. From a window you hear a baby cry. Then quiet. A dog trots past with serious purpose. Somewhere a hammer strikes metal, a steady rhythm that seems to mark the town's heartbeat. You walk slowly, letting your mind settle into the details. Medieval towns are not designed for speed. They are designed for closeness. Everything is near, because most people carry what they own on their backs, in baskets or on small carts. Water must be fetched, firewood must be hauled, food must be sold and bought before it spoils. The pace of life is shaped by the limits of muscle and daylight, and those limits, strangely, can feel calming. No one expects instant answers here. A question is carried from one person to another like a candle passed across a room, and it reaches you when it reaches you. The market square is opening like a flower. Stalls appear as if they have been sleeping all night and are now stretching awake. A butcher lays out cuts of meat on a wooden board. A fishmonger tips a basket, and the silvery bodies flash once, then lie still. A baker carries loaves from an oven, the smell warm and reassuring. A potter sets out simple bowls, each one slightly different, each one touched by a human hand. A woman arranges bunches of herbs, parsley, sage, and a few dried stems meant to scent a room or soothe a cough. And here is one of the quiet wonders of the medieval world, the way ordinary things are made. In your modern life, many objects arrive without a story. Here, every object has a visible path. You can see who made it. You can imagine the steps. The bread has flour from a mill, flour from grain, grain from a field, field from labor, labor from hands. The cloth has wool from sheep, wool washed and combed, spun into thread, woven on a loom, dyed in a vat that smells sharp and strange, then cut and stitched by a needle that moves, again and again. With calm precision, if you drift toward a lane beside the market, you can visit the workshops. A cooper shapes a barrel hoop, tapping it into place with careful strikes. A carpenter planes a board, the curl of wood falling like ribbons. A blacksmith works at his forge, the metal glowing orange, then brightening, then dimming as he turns it. The sound is steady and strangely soothing. Strike. Pause. Strike. Pause. A bellows breathes like a living thing. The smith's arms move with practiced confidence, as if the work itself has become a kind of prayer, a ritual of heat and patience. In towns, crafts are often organized into guilds. The guild is not only a business group, but a family of sorts. It sets standards, controls training, and protects its members from unfair competition. It can also feel strict and closed, especially to outsiders, but it gives structure in a world that loves structure. Apprentices begin young, sweeping floors, fetching water, learning to watch. They do not learn by rushing. They learn by repeating. A master shows emotion once, then again, then corrects the angle of a hand, the pressure of a thumb, the pace of a breath. If you step into a guild hall, you might see benches worn smooth by decades of meetings. There may be a chest with several locks because money and documents must be guarded by more than one person. A set of weights and measures might sit on a shelf, used to settle disputes with quiet authority. A simple set of numbers, a small iron weight, can keep the peace. There is comfort in that. The medieval world is hard, but it tries, in its own slow way, to build fairness into the daily grind. Somewhere nearby, you might hear singing, not loud, but woven into work. A spinner hums while turning wool into thread. A washerwoman sings to keep her arms moving through cold water. A group of men lifts a heavy beam and counts their steps with a chant, making one body out of many bodies. The town is full of small rhythms like this, and your mind can rest in them. You do not need to understand every word. The melody alone is enough. Now and then, the church bell marks an hour. In the Middle Ages, bells are the closest thing to a public clock. They call people to prayer, to mass, to feast days, sometimes to alarm, but most of the time, the bell simply divides the day gently, like a soft hand turning pages in a book. When you hear it, you can let your shoulders drop a little more. The bell tells you that time is passing in an orderly way. If you wish, step into the church for a moment. The doorway is cool. Inside, the air is dim and smells faintly of wax and stone. Light falls through small windows, not the bright colored glass of a great cathedral, but the plain glow of daylight softened by dust. A few people kneel in silence. A candle flickers. A wooden statue watches calmly from an alcove. Whatever you believe, you can feel the church as a place built for quiet. In a world that is often harsh, quiet is a kind of shelter. Back outside, the market is busier now. People bargain without rushing. Prices matter. Coins are few. A merchant weighs spices on a small scale, careful and exact, because a pinch too much can mean loss. A traveler from far away speaks with an accent that turns heads. Children weave through legs like quick fish, their laughter bright, then gone. A town crier calls a notice, his voice carrying over the square. Most people cannot read, So words must be spoken aloud. News travels by mouths and memories, and it travels at the speed of breath. You might notice the less charming details too, and even they can be strangely calming when you view them from safety. There is the open gutter, the muddy corners, the smell that lingers where animals have passed. Towns are crowded, and cleanliness is a constant challenge. People sweep, they scatter fresh straw, they carry ashes away, but the streets still bear the marks of life. At the well, someone hauls up a bucket. Water spills and darkens the ground. A boy carries 2 pails with a wooden yoke across his shoulders. His steps careful, his jaw set in quiet determination. At the edge of the square, an inn opens its door. The room inside is dark but welcoming, warmed by bodies and a low fire. If you sit there in your imagination, you can hear the soft clink of cups and the murmur of voices that do not need to be loud. Travelers speak of roads, of bridges, of river crossings, of a village where the ale is better, of a monastery where a traveler might find shelter. A musician plucks a stringed instrument in a corner, a simple tune repeating. The repetition is the point. It turns the room into a slow circle of sound, and your mind can step into that circle and rest. And in this tangle of daily life, history is happening quietly. Towns grow, trade expands, money becomes more important. New ideas arrive with travelers. A book copied in one monastery finds its way to a scholar in another city. A method of building spreads from region to region. A new tool appears, a better plough, a different kind of harness, a change so small that it looks like nothing. Yet it shifts the balance of work and time. The medieval world is not frozen. It is alive. It is changing, slowly, like a river that keeps moving even when its surface looks still. But we are not here to analyze. We are here to drift. So let the details be soft. Let your mind watch them as if watching a lantern glow. You can notice, then let go. Notice, then let go. As afternoon leans toward evening, the market begins to settle. Stalls fold, baskets lighten. Unsold fish must be eaten quickly or salted. Bread that is too hard becomes tomorrow's porridge. The blacksmith douses his forge, steam rising in a brief white breath. The carpenter sweeps shavings into a pile. The town's noise lowers, not because life stops, but because it turns inward. People go home. In the last light you may see the guards preparing to close the gate. The heavy doors swing slowly. A bar is set in place. It is not dramatic. It is routine. A nightly gesture that says we have done what we can. Now we rest. Somewhere, a watchman takes up his lantern and begins his slow walk. His footsteps will pass beneath your window again and again. If you listen for them, they are like a heartbeat, steady and reassuring. You might also glimpse the town's small authorities at work before night fully settles. A clerk counts coins and scratches notes onto a tablet. A reeve or bailiff speaks with a merchant about a toll for a cart entering the gate. A dispute over a broken barrel or a short measure of grain is settled with a tired sigh and a simple rule. None of it is grand, yet it keeps the place from falling apart. Order in the Middle Ages is not an abstract idea. It is a set of repeated habits performed by ordinary people who want tomorrow to feel predictable. Homes in medieval towns are small and crowded, but they hold warmth. A family might share one room, sometimes with a loft, The hearth is the center. Food is simple. Pottage. Bread, a bit of cheese, perhaps an onion or an apple. If someone is lucky, there is meat on a feast day. If someone is not lucky, the bowl is thinner. Still, there is a comfort in routine. Hands pass bowls. A child leans against a parent. An old person tells a story that has been told many times, and it is told again, because repetition is a kind of safety. The story has edges you already know. You can rest inside it. Outside, the light fades. A curfew bell might ring, reminding people to keep their fires safe and their noise low. Candles are precious. Darkness is accepted. The sky beyond the wall becomes a deep bowl of night, and stars appear one by one. You can imagine the town settling into sleep, the way a tired animal settles into straw. A last cart rumbles somewhere. Then silence closes over it. Imagine yourself standing near the wall as dusk arrives. The sky is pale violet, then deepening. Smoke rises from chimneys in soft threads. The road beyond the gates stretches into the dark countryside, a ribbon of shadow between hedges and trees. It does not look frightening now. It looks patient. It looks like tomorrow, and if you listen closely, you can hear the town's last sounds: a door closing, a laugh from an upstairs window, the faint clink of a cup being set down. Those sounds fade into quiet, the way thoughts fade when you stop holding them. If you want to rest inside the town tonight, imagine a small room above the inn. The stairs creak softly, the wood polished by countless feet. A thin candle burns in a dish of clay, its flame steady in the sheltered air. You lie on a mattress of straw and wool, rough but warm. Outside, the watchman's steps pass by, then fade. Inside, your breathing becomes the quietest sound, and the medieval night holds you with patience. The last tavern voice turns into a murmur, then into nothing at all. In that hush, you can let your thoughts loosen, one by one. In a moment, you will leave the town behind and step onto the medieval road, following the calm path that travelers and pilgrims have walked for centuries. But for now, stay in this in-between. The wall behind you, the open field ahead, the day finished, the night beginning. Let your breathing slow. Let your body feel heavy and safe. When you are ready, imagine the gate opening in your mind, not with urgency, but with gentle invitation. The road is waiting, and it will carry us onward in the next quiet stretch of our journey. Step out with me, slowly, as if you are leaving the inn without waking the floorboards. The stair creaks once, then settles. The door opens on a night that feels thick and gentle, like a wool cloak laid over the world. A few lanterns still glow in niches along the street, and the stones hold the day's warmth for a little longer. Somewhere on the wall, a watchman's footsteps pass. Pause, then continue, steady as a calm heartbeat. You walk toward the gate with no urgency. In this time, travel is a patient thing. The gatekeeper lifts the bar, not with drama, but with routine. The town's great doors open just wide enough for a person, a donkey, a small cart. You slip through the arch and feel the air change again. Cooler, wetter, scented with grass and dark soil. Behind you, the town is a pocket of light. Ahead, the road is a pale ribbon under starlight. Let your breathing match your steps. One breath in, One breath out. The road beneath your feet is uneven, but it is known. It has been pressed by thousands of souls, pilgrims, merchants, messengers, farmers driving animals to market. The path does not rush. It curves around hedges and follows the soft logic of the land. On one side, a field lies quiet, its stubble silvered by dew. On the other, a line of trees stands like a dark fence against the sky. Far away, a dog barks once, then decides there is nothing more to say. An owl calls, then the sound dissolves into the open air. You can hear your own quiet movement, the faint scuff of leather, the whisper of cloth. If you listen closely, you may hear water too. Not a river yet, but a small stream hidden in the grass. Threading through the night, the medieval world sleeps around you, and it is a deep, old sleep. As you walk, you pass little markers of faith and habit. A wooden cross by the roadside, weathered and pale. A stone shrine with a niche for a candle. Its soot stains like old fingerprints. These things are not meant to impress. They are meant to comfort. In a world where storms can flatten crops and sickness can arrive without warning, people place small signs in the landscape to remind themselves that someone is watching. That meaning is possible, that tomorrow might be kinder. Soon you meet other travelers, not many, but a few, moving in the same slow current, a pair of merchants with a pack horse, their voices low, their jokes quiet, careful not to wake the night. A woman with a basket covered in cloth, walking as if she has walked this road 100 times, because she probably has. A young man with a staff and a simple badge sewn to his cloak. A pilgrim's sign, metal catching starlight for a brief moment when he turns. No one speaks loudly. Words at night feel heavy, and people can serve them. Instead, you share the silent language of passing, a nod, a small shift to the side, a respectful distance. In this shared quiet, you can feel a strange safety. You are not alone on the road, and yet you are not required to perform. You can simply be. The moon hangs above the hedgerows. Sometimes it hides behind a cloud and the road disappears. Then it returns and the path reappears, the same as before. This is how the medieval night teaches patience. Things come and go. Light returns. The world does not need your worry to keep turning. A little later, you see a low shape by the roadside, a wayside shelter. Nothing more than a lean-to with a roof of thatch and a rough bench. Travelers use it when rain comes suddenly, or when feet grow tired. Tonight it is empty. You can pause there if you like. Sit down for a moment. Feel the wood beneath you, cool and slightly damp. Let your shoulders soften. Let the night air touch your face like cold water. Clean and quiet from here. You can imagine the long chain of roads that lace medieval Europe together. Some lead to great cities and cathedrals. Some lead to tiny villages that exist only as a cluster of lights on a winter evening. Some lead to bridges where tolls are paid, and to ferries where coins change hands, and to mountain passes where the wind speaks louder than people do. Yet all of them, in the end, are made of the same simple thing, footsteps, repeated day after day, century after century. When you rise again, keep walking, but let your mind wander gently. Perhaps you think of the craftsmen in the town you left, their steady hands. Perhaps you think of the peasant families in cottages beyond the fields, the way their fires dim as they sleep. Perhaps you think of the monks in their monastery, rising in the night to chant, their voices flowing like a slow river through stone corridors. In your imagination, these lives are not separate. They are braided together by trade, by faith, by fear, by hope, by the simple need for bread. The road dips and you smell water more clearly now. A river is near. You hear it before you see it. A soft, constant hush at the crossing. There is a simple wooden bridge, narrow, with rails that feel rough to the touch. In some places the boards are worn smooth by countless feet. You step onto it, and the river below moves without concern, carrying the night along with it. The water reflects stars in broken pieces. The reflection trembles, then reforms. As if practicing calm, on the far side of the bridge, a small chapel sits back from the road. A modest building with a low door and a bell that is silent at this hour. A candle burns inside, just one, watched over by no one and everyone. You do not have to go in. It is enough to know it is there. A point of light in the dark, a promise that warmth exists somewhere nearby. Keep moving, a little farther, until you see the next gentle shelter, a monastery guest house on the edge of a wooded rise. The buildings are low and solid, stone and timber, shaped by function rather than display. A gate stands open just enough to welcome a traveler. No one asks you to hurry. No one asks you to explain your whole story. In the guest house, a brother offers bread and water, perhaps a thin ale, perhaps a bowl of pottage. He does it quietly, as if kindness is a normal part of the night. You eat slowly. You feel the warmth in your chest. You hear the monastery's quiet sounds, a distant door closing, the soft shuffle of sandals, the faintest echo of chant, and then you are shown a place to rest. A simple bed, a blanket that smells of wool and smoke, a room with a small window where moonlight makes a pale square on the floor. Lie down now, in your imagination. Feel the mattress take your weight. Let the day's thoughts fall away like dust shaken from a cloak. Outside, the river keeps moving. Inside, the monastery holds stillness like a bowl holds water. The medieval road is behind you for the moment, and it will be there tomorrow, patient as ever. For now, the only task is to breathe slowly and let sleep arrive in its own time. Before sleep fully takes you, you may notice a small sound you would never hear in your modern room, the slow drip of water into a basin somewhere in the hall. It is not annoying. It is a metronome, an ancient clock counting time in drops instead of digits. You listen for it, and after a few breaths it fades into the background, joining the river's hush and the faint crackle of a dying hearth. A monk passes once in the corridor, carrying a shaded lantern. The light slides under your door like a thin ribbon, then withdraws. For a moment you can picture the man, middle-aged perhaps, shoulders slightly rounded from years of work at a desk, hands stained faintly with ink. He walks with the calm of someone who has surrendered the need to rush. His life is made of repeated hours, prayer, labor, quiet study, simple meals, and sleep that comes in brief portions. The monastery is not a place where time is fought. It is a place where time is accepted. If you like, let your imagination follow him without effort. He steps into the chapel for a moment, just to check the candles, to make sure the flame is safe. He pauses, listening to the building's silence, and then, satisfied, he returns to the cloister. The stone under his feet is cool. The arches above him hold the night like cupped hands. In the courtyard, a small herb garden waits for dawn. Rosemary and sage hold their scents close, even in darkness, somewhere deeper in the monastery. A few brothers are awake for the night office. Their voices are soft, almost swallowed by the stone. But you can sense the shape of the chant. It rises, it falls, it repeats. The Latin words are not important for you to understand. What matters is the rhythm, the steadiness, the way human breath becomes a kind of music. It is a sound that has drifted through centuries, through winters and plagues and wars, through long summers of harvest and short days of hunger. Tonight it drifts through you too, and it asks nothing from you except to relax. In the guest house room, there might be a small wooden chest at the foot of the bed. Travelers keep their few belongings there. A pair of worn gloves, a pouch of coins, a letter wrapped in cloth, a knife meant for bread, not for harm. People in this age own less, but they guard it carefully, because replacing anything takes effort. The simplicity of the room is not emptiness. It is relief. Nothing here demands your attention. Nothing here shines or buzzes or pulls you into endless thinking. Outside the window, the sky is wide. If clouds pass, they do so slowly, as if they too are tired. You might see the faint glow of a distant village, a few dots of candlelight, and then darkness again. You might see only the outline of trees, black against a softer black. Either way, the night feels complete. It does not need to be improved. Now, if your mind wants a gentle story, let it have one. Imagine that tomorrow. After the sun rises and the monastery's bell rings, you will be guided through a room that most travelers never see, the scriptorium. It is warm there, warmed not by luxury, but by work. A long table, slanted boards, and parchment sheets laid out like pale leaves. There are small knives for trimming quills, stones for smoothing ink, and jars of pigment, crushed lapis for blue, verdigris for green, red made from insects or minerals, black made from soot and iron. One brother shows you a page that has taken him days. The letters are careful and dark. The margins are filled with vines and small creatures. Not because the world is childish, but because beauty is a form of devotion. A tiny rabbit peers from a painted thicket. A bird lifts its wing. A gold leaf halo catches light and holds it. The brother smiles, just barely, proud but humble. He explains, in simple terms, that a book is like a bridge. It carries knowledge across time, from the dead to the living, from one generation to the next. The bridge does not hurry. It only holds. You do not need to remember every detail of this imagined page. You only need to feel the softness of the idea that people long ago cared enough to make something slow and careful and beautiful, even in difficult lives. That care still exists in the world, in different forms, and it can reach you now, in the dark, as you rest. If your thoughts drift back to the road, let them do so gently. Think of the bridge you crossed, the stars broken on the river's surface, the way the water kept moving without worry. Think of the travelers who nodded to you in the night, each carrying a private story. A merchant thinking of his profit and his family. a pilgrim thinking of forgiveness, a mother thinking of bread and winter, each of them, like you, searching for a little peace inside a world that can be sharp. And if your thoughts drift toward your own day, your own life, let that also be allowed. There's no need to wrestle with it. Just notice it, like a cloud crossing the moon. Notice and let it pass. Your body is here. Your breath is here. The night is doing its slow work. The monastery walls are thick. They hold out the wind. They hold in warmth. In the same way, you can let your mind build gentle walls around you now. Not walls of fear, but walls of quiet. Inside them there is only rest. Your shoulders soften. Your jaw unclenches. Your hands release. The muscles around your eyes loosen, as if they are learning to smile. One more slow breath in, and a longer breath out. The world does not ask anything else of you. The medieval road can wait. The morning can wait. Even the story can wait. For now, you are safe, and you are allowed to sleep. If you wake for a moment in the night, as people often did in this age, you might simply listen, then turn your pillow, then drift back down again. The river still hushes. The candles still guard their small circles of light. And the centuries, for once, feel kind. Sleep now, softly. Let your thoughts become slower than footsteps, slower than water. Let them become quiet, like a monastery after prayer, and let them fade into the dark. All is well, and you are carried into sleep. Morning arrives in the medieval world the way it often arrives in life, not with a sudden shout, but with a gradual softening. The square of moonlight on the floor becomes a paler square. The dark corners of your room loosen their grip. Somewhere beyond the guest house wall, a bird tests its voice, then falls silent, as if listening to its own echo. Then, gently, the monastery bell speaks. One slow note, then another. It does not demand. It invites. You remain lying down for a moment, letting the sound wash through you like warm water. In this age, bells are not only for worship, they are the town clock, the public breath of time itself. The bell tells farmers when to begin, craftsmen when to pause, monks when to pray. It draws scattered lives into one rhythm. If you wish, you can rise with the monks, move slowly, as if you are still half inside a dream. Your feet find the floor. The air is cool and clean, scented with stone and old wood. In the corridor, a brother passes and nods, and you follow him toward the chapel. The doorway is low. You step inside and feel the hush settle over you at once. The chapel is simple, but it is not empty. A few candles burn near the altar, their flames steady in the still air. The stone arches hold the dim light in gentle curves. Monks stand in rows, their robes dark, their heads bowed. When the chant begins, it is quiet enough that you almost miss the first notes. Then it gathers, like a stream gathering into a river. The sound is slow, repeating, patient. You do not have to know the words. You only have to let the cadence become your own. As the voices rise and fall, your breathing can slow. Inhale as the chant lifts. Exhale as it settles. The mind, so eager to race in modern life, learns another way here. It learns to move in circles, not straight lines. It learns that repetition can be a comfort, not a trap. When the last note fades, the silence that follows feels deep, like a well. After prayer comes breakfast. The refectory is long and plain. Wooden tables polished by years of hands, bowls and cups that do not match, but do not need to. You receive a piece of bread, dense and dark, and a small bowl of pottage, thin but warm. Perhaps there is a little cheese, perhaps an apple, wrinkled from storage. The food tastes of earth and effort. It is not meant to thrill. It is meant to sustain. While the monks eat, one of them reads from a book. His voice is steady, neither dramatic nor bored. It is a voice trained to carry meaning without insisting on emotion. The others listen with their eyes lowered, not because they are forbidden to look up, but because looking up is unnecessary. The words are enough. The meal ends without clatter. Bowls are cleared. A simple gesture of thanks is offered. And then the day unfolds into work. If you are guided through the monastery, you might step into the scriptorium you imagined last night. Here, daylight matters. Windows are set high because glass is expensive and the cold is real. The light that enters is soft and grey, perfect for seeing ink without harsh glare. Monks sit at desks, each with parchment, quill, and a small knife for trimming. You hear the scratch of writing, the faint tap of a pen being tested, the careful exhale of someone concentrating. A brother shows you how a quill is cut. He splits the tip, sharpens the edge, tests it on a scrap, then he writes a single letter, perfect and dark. He explains that ink is not simply bought, it is made. Oak galls, iron salts, and gum arabic, mixed with patience. Pigments for decoration are ground with a stone, stirred with egg or glue, laid down in thin layers. Gold leaf is pressed gently, then burnished until it shines like a captured sun. As you watch, you might feel a strange calm. The work is slow, and that slowness is its strength. In a world where so much is uncertain, a monk can control at least one thing. The next letter, the next line, the next page. This is how knowledge survives. Not by speed, but by devotion. Outside the monastery walls, the world continues. Of course, fields wait for ploughs, towns prepare for markets. Lords send messages, but inside, the hours are arranged like beads on a string, each one touched and counted. Prayer, work, meal, work, prayer, rest. There is comfort in the pattern, even for a visitor. When the morning's tasks are done, you may return to the road, refreshed in an odd way, as if the stillness has rinsed you. A monk offers a blessing for your journey, not a grand ceremony, just a hand raised, a few quiet words. You step through the gate again, and the road greets you as it did last night, patient and pale. Now the fields are visible. The sky is a wide bowl of blue-grey, and the sun lifts slowly behind distant trees. Mist sits low in the hollows, turning the land into layers of softness. As you walk, you see signs of life. A farmer and his son driving a small flock, a woman carrying water from a well, smoke rising from a cottage chimney in a thin line. The road leads you toward a market town, not large, but busy on the right day. Today is one of those days. You can tell because the traffic increases. Carts appear, wheels creaking, piled with sacks of grain, bundles of wool, crates of onions, barrels of ale. People walk beside them, some barefoot, some in worn shoes, all moving with the steady determination of those who know that a market is both opportunity and risk. As you approach the town, you hear it before you see it, the murmur of many voices, the bray of a donkey, the clink of metal, the slap of a fish against a board. The smell arrives too, smoke, sweat, bread, animals, and the sharp tang of something pickled. This is the medieval economy in its most human form. Not numbers on parchment, but hands, faces, bargaining, laughter, small arguments, quick apologies. Inside the gate, the street's narrow. Half-timbered houses lean toward each other as if listening. The ground is muddy in places because there are no modern drains, only channels and habit. You step carefully. A crier shouts news, but the words blur into the general sound, like waves. At a stall, a woman weighs cheese on a small scale. At another, a tanner displays leather, rich brown, smelling strong. A potter stacks cups that are slightly uneven, but sturdy. In the center of the square, a guild banner hangs. The craftsmen of the town do not work alone. They are bound together by rules, by oaths, by pride. A young apprentice carries a board of newly baked loaves to his master's shop, careful as if he is carrying treasure. In a way, bread is life. Let your mind drift through the stalls without hurry. You do not need to buy, you only need to notice a spool of thread in bright dye, a small knife with a bone handle, a bundle of herbs that smells like summer even in cold months. A book, rare and costly, kept wrapped in cloth and shown only to those who can pay. Around you, medieval life moves in its familiar mix of hardship and small delight. And now, as the market's noise swells, let it become a soft background hum for you. Like rain on a roof, you can stand at the edge of the square, safe, watching. You can let the faces blur into gentle shapes. You can let the sounds blend into one steady tone. The town is alive, but you are allowed to rest inside it. When the sun reaches a little higher and you feel the first hint of warmth on your skin, you may choose to step aside into a quiet lane. There, away from the shouts, you find a small courtyard with a fountain that does not always run, but today it trickles. Water. Again, counting time, a cat sleeps on a windowsill. Unbothered, the world can be loud, and still a cat can sleep. Let that be a lesson you borrow. Breathe in, breathe out. The medieval day continues, and your journey, slow and steady, continues too, carrying you deeper into a world that, for all its distance, still knows the same human need for rest. From the quiet lane, you can hear the market's heart without standing inside it. The sound becomes softer, less sharp, like a song heard through a closed door. You may notice other small rhythms now, a hammer tapping somewhere, a bell on a shop door ringing once, the slow shuffle of a broom sweeping straw and mud away from a threshold. In this age, cleanliness is fought for, not assumed, People keep their doorsteps as best they can, drawing a thin line of order in a world that always tries to spill. If you step into a guild workshop, you see another kind of order. Tools hang in careful rows. A block of wood waits on a bench. A heap of iron scraps sits beside a forge. The master speaks to the apprentice in short sentences, because long speeches are for courts, and work needs simple words. Hold it steady, turn the board, watch the edge. The apprentice obeys, not with fear, but with focus. His future depends on learning these motions until they are part of his hands. A guild is not only a business, it is a school of patience. Near the square stands the church. Always, even in a market town, even among trades and coins, the church is the steady spine. You can enter if you like. Inside, the air is cooler, the smell changes. Wax, stone, a faint hint of old incense. Light enters through small panes, turning dust into floating gold. A few people kneel, not many, because most are busy, but they take a moment anyway. In a time when death is common, prayer is not always an act of perfect faith. Sometimes it is simply a pause, the human breath taken on purpose. You sit on a wooden bench. The church is not silent, but its sounds are small. A candle sputters once. A foot shifts. A whispered word is swallowed by the walls. In that gentle dimness, it is easy to imagine the long centuries of worship that have soaked into these stones. People have come here to celebrate births, to mourn losses, to ask for rain, to beg for healing. Their names are forgotten, but their need is familiar. When you leave the church, the market feels less overwhelming, as if the quiet has placed a soft cloth over the noise. You walk again among the stalls, and now you notice the human stories behind the goods. A weaver sells cloth that took her months. Her fingers are stained with dye, her shoulders tight from leaning over a loom. She smiles, tired but proud, as someone admires the pattern. Nearby, a cooper inspects a barrel hoop, tapping it lightly, listening for the right ring. A fishmonger flicks water onto his catch to keep it shining, as if shine could hold back time. The town has rules too, beyond the guilds. A reeve watches for cheating. A clerk counts taxes for the lord. A man with a staff keeps carts from clogging the street. Authority in the Middle Ages is often close enough to touch. It is not always just, but it is visible. You can see who holds power. You can see who bows and who does not. And yet, for all the structure, the market is also a place where the world grows wider. Here you hear accents from other regions. Here you glimpse goods from far away, pepper that traveled through many hands, silk that crossed deserts and seas, a small piece of amber that holds a sunlit memory of a distant shore. These objects are like whispers of other worlds, reminding you that medieval people were not trapped in ignorance. They were curious. They listened. They dreamed, even if their dreams had to fit inside hard lives. As the day passes, the crowd begins to thin. Some sellers pack up. Some buyers hurry home with their purchases, because daylight is precious. In the alley behind a bakery, you smell fresh bread again, and the scent feels like a blanket. You might buy a small roll, still warm, and hold it for a moment before eating, as if the warmth itself is part of the meal. Now imagine that you find lodging for the evening in a house above a shop, or in an inn near the gate. Not a grand place, a room with a narrow bed, a shuttered window, and a shared hearth downstairs. The innkeeper's wife speaks in a practical tone. She has seen travellers come and go. She offers a bowl of stew, and you eat slowly, letting the day settle. In the corner of the common room, someone plays a quiet tune on a simple instrument. The notes are uneven, but kind. A child, half asleep, leans against a parent's shoulder as night approaches. The market town closes like a flower folding its petals. Shutters are barred, fires are banked, the last voices fade, and you, too, are allowed to fold inward. Your journey has carried you from road to monastery to market, from silence to sound, and back toward silence again. That is how sleep works. 2, it carries you through thoughts, through memories, through small bursts of noise, and then it gathers you into stillness. Rest now. Let bells, quills, and bread fade into hum, and let sleep arrive. Night in the market town is quieter than you might expect. When the last stall is packed away and the last cart has rolled out through the gate, the streets relax. The day's noise leaves a faint echo, then fades like smoke. Above, the sky is clear again, and the stars look sharper here than they do in the modern world. Unsoftened by electric light, you rest, and the sleep you find is the kind that comes after simple effort, not the restless sleep of scrolling and bright screens, but a heavier, older sleep. In the dark, you can still smell bread on your hands. You can still hear, far away, the market's hum turning into the inn's quiet breathing, and then the night closes around you and holds you. When dawn returns, it brings movement again. Travelers rise early because daylight is money, safety, and time. You hear a cartwheel being greased. You hear an innkeeper calling softly for someone to pay before they go. You hear the first hooves on the road outside the gate. You dress in layers that are practical, not fashionable. Wool against the cold, a cloak against wind, leather at the feet. Then you step out, letting the cool morning air clear your thoughts. Today the road leads toward a larger crossing, a place where routes meet. In the Middle Ages, control of crossings is power. A bridge is more than timber and nails. It is a question: who is allowed to pass? And at what price? As you walk, you begin to see the signs. A small cluster of cottages near water, a painted board offering ferry service when the river runs too high, a post where notices can be nailed, a shrine where travellers leave a coin for luck. The river here is wider than the one you crossed at night. It moves slowly, brown and strong, carrying leaves, small branches, and the occasional piece of driftwood. A stone bridge spans it, not wide, but sturdy. At the near end stands a booth, and beside it a man with a ledger, ink-stained fingers, and an expression that says he has heard every complaint already. This is the toll collector. He is not a villain, he is a function. He keeps the Lord's Crossing funded, and he takes his small share. You watch a farmer pay with a few coins and a sack of onions. You watch a merchant argue, politely, about the weight of his load. You watch a monk pass for free, because the church has privileges, and because everyone needs the church's blessing at least sometimes. The toll collector shrugs, stamps a mark on a slip, and waves them on. The system is imperfect, but it holds. When it is your turn, you pay in imagination, and you cross. The stones under your feet are worn in the center, smoothed by centuries of passage. If you place your hand on the parapet, it feels cold and slightly damp, as if it has been drinking river air all night. Halfway across, you pause, because pausing is allowed in this story. You look down at the water and see it sliding past, indifferent and steady, just as it did last night under the wooden bridge. The river is older than the towns. It will be here after them. On the far bank, the road rises gently. In the distance you can see a manor house or a small castle, not the towering fairy tale kind, but a practical seat of local power, a stone hall, a curtain wall perhaps, a stable yard, a kitchen garden. Smoke rises from the hearth. A banner hangs limp in the morning air. This place is not only a home, it is a node in the feudal net. You do not need to enter. It is enough to pass nearby and feel how the landscape changes around it. The fields are more ordered. The hedges are trimmed. A few men-at-arms walk the lane, spears in hand, not looking for trouble, but reminding everyone that authority has teeth. A small group of labourers moves toward the Lord's Demesne field, the land that belongs directly to him. They walk with tools on their shoulders, heads down, already thinking of the work. And yet, even here, life is not only power, it is also routine. In the kitchen yard, a girl carries a bucket of water, careful not to spill. A cook's boy runs with bread. A dog dozes in a patch of sunlight, unconcerned with politics. Inside the hall, a clerk might be writing letters, copying accounts, keeping track of rents and tithes, parchment and ink, again, holding the world together in lines. As you continue, the road becomes busier. You fall in beside a small group heading the same way, a wool merchant with 2 pack horses, an older woman with a basket of eggs, a young couple traveling to a relative's wedding. They speak quietly about the weather, about prices, about rumors. In this world, rumors are a kind of news network. A traveler from another county can bring a story that changes how people think of their own village. Someone mentions a levy for a distant war. Someone mentions that a lord's son has been taken as a page to another household. Someone mentions that a new priest has arrived, stricter than the last. The details drift by like leaves on the river. You do not need to hold them tightly. Let them float. If your mind wants a larger thread of history, you can let one appear gently in the 14th and 15th centuries. These roads and bridges and manor houses will feel the strain of a long conflict, the 100 Years' War between England and France. Not every village will see battles, but many will feel the taxes, the shortages, the fear of raids, the arrival of injured men. The war will be made of big names and crowns, but also of small burdens carried by ordinary backs. You do not have to dwell on violence. Instead, notice the quieter machinery that war pulls into motion. The clerk writing requisitions, the smith making arrowheads, the fletcher straightening shafts, the farmer wondering how much grain will be taken, the church praying for peace while blessing banners. Even conflict has its routines, and routines can feel strangely dull, even as they change lives. On a rise, you see an art tribute in a village green. A few men practice because English law and habit encourage the longbow. Their arrows thud into straw. The sound is soft from a distance. like someone tapping a door. The men laugh, tease one another, then fetch their arrows again. Practice is part of life. Like ploughing, it is not heroic. It is repetition. By midday, the sun warms the road. You stop where a stream crosses under a small bridge and you drink. The water's cold. It tastes like stone and grass. You sit on the bank and let your feet rest. If you listen, you can hear bees in the hedges. You can hear leaves moving. You can hear a cart far off, squeaking like a slow bird. This is the place where your mind can settle again. The medieval world is not only castles and plagues and crusades. It is also pauses. It is the moment when a traveler sits by water and feels, for a few breaths, that the whole world is simply moving and breathing and existing, and that this is enough. When you rise and walk again, the road leads toward another town, smaller than the market town, but with a small fair today. You can hear a fiddler already, one thin tune repeating. You can smell roasting meat, rare and tempting. Children run at the edge of the crowd, chasing each other in circles. A juggler tosses apples. A priest stands nearby, watching with a look that is half disapproval, half amusement. You do not have to join the fair. You can stand at a distance and let it blur into a soft scene, like a painting viewed through half-closed eyes. Movement, color, sound, all gentle. And then, as the afternoon lengthens, you find another quiet place to rest your mind, a grassy slope behind the church, where the ground is warm and the shadow of the building is cool. Lie down there in imagination. If you like, feel the grass, feel the sun, not hot, just present. Hear the faint fair sounds in the distance, softened by the church wall, and let your eyelids grow heavy. In this story, you can fall asleep anywhere. The medieval world has been doing that for centuries, and it can teach your modern mind to do it too. From the grassy slope, you see the church's stone, raised by hands and patience. It has offered shade and quiet for generations. Inside, a cool darkness waits. The door is heavy. When you step through, the fair's noise becomes distant at once, as if someone has closed a lid. Light falls in narrow beams. A saint's painted face watches from the wall. A few votive candles flicker. Here, even on a day of music and trade, people pause to remember that joy and sorrow are neighbors. A woman kneels and murmurs a prayer for a sick child. A man touches a pillar as if asking it to hold him up. And then they return to the fair, carrying their private hopes back into the daylight. Outside again, you wander through the fair with no pressure. You are not hunting for bargains. You are gathering gentle impressions. A stall of ribbons in faded blues and reds, a basket of walnuts, a pile of rough wool mittens, a man selling spoons carved from wood, each one slightly different, each one the shape of someone's patience. A traveling barber with a cloth sign, offering haircuts, beard trims, and sometimes more than that, because in the Middle Ages, barbers often serve as minor surgeons too. Near him, a healer displays bundles of dried herbs. Yarrow, thyme, chamomile, she explains to anyone who will listen. What each plant can do. Some of her knowledge is true. Some is tradition. Some is hope wrapped in smell. Yet, hope has value. When someone is scared, the act of being offered something, Even a tea can calm the mind. You watch her hands as she ties a bundle with twine. Neat and quick. Hands, again, doing the ancient work of caring. A storyteller gathers children and a few adults too. His voice rises and falls, shaping a tale of a clever fox or a foolish giant. People laugh, and the laughter is uncomplicated, as if it has been stored up for weeks. In the story, the world is simple enough to understand. In the story, dangers can be tricked. In the story, justice arrives on time. No one believes it completely, and yet everyone leans in, because leaning in feels good. A minstrel plays a tune that repeats, and repetition is what your mind is beginning to love. The melody loops like the road loops through the land. A drum taps, someone claps, a couple turns in a slow dance, not elegant, but sincere. Dust rises from their feet and hangs in sunlight. For a moment, the whole fair seems to breathe together. When the fair winds down, you follow the road a little farther to a village that sits in a dip, sheltered from wind. The cottages are low, their roofs thick with thatch. Smoke rises in steady columns. Children are called inside. Chickens cluck as they settle. A pig grunts in a pen. The world becomes domestic again. Smaller, closer, you are welcomed into a cottage as a traveller might be, if the household has enough to share. A bench by the fire, a bowl of stew, a crust of bread. The interior is dim, lit by flame and a small window. The walls are plastered with wattle beneath, and the smell of smoke clings to everything because chimneys are imperfect. Yet the warmth is real. The heat touches your face and hands. Your shoulders loosen. In the corner, the spinning wheel turns. A woman works wool into thread with practiced calm. The motion is steady, almost hypnotic. Around her, the family speaks in low voices about the day, the fair, the prices, who was seen, who looked tired, who seemed healthy, who coughed. Health is always watched in this age, because illness can spread fast, and because medicine is limited. Still, the conversation remains practical. People do what they can. They rest when they can. They pray when they must. Later, when the fire is banked and the room grows darker, the household lies down where there is space. Not everyone has a separate bed. Straw pallets are common. Blankets are shared. Privacy is scarce. But community is close. You, to find a place to lie down, you listen to the quiet breathing of others. You hear the last crackle of embers. You hear the wind brush the thatch like a hand smoothing hair. In that moment, you may feel something simple and powerful. You are held, not by luxury, not by modern comfort, but by the basic human habit of gathering warmth in the dark. This is what people have done for tens of thousands of years. They have made little islands of fire and trust, and they have slept. So let your body borrow that ancient permission. Let your eyelids grow heavy. Let your thoughts shorten. If a worry appears, imagine placing it beside the hearth, like a tool set down after work. You can pick it up tomorrow, if you must. Tonight you do not need it. Tonight the medieval world offers you one gift. The same gift it offers every tired traveller, a place in the circle of warmth, and a slow path into sleep. Sleep comes. In the village cottage, night thickens again, and the circle of warmth grows smaller as the embers dim. Breaths deepen. A dog sighs and curls tighter. Outside, The world is mostly dark, but not empty. The wind moves through trees. A distant owl calls. Somewhere, water keeps talking to itself in a ditch or stream, even when no one is listening. If you wake briefly, you do not have to worry. Medieval sleep is often broken into parts. People rise. They tend the fire. They whisper a few words. They return to bed. The night is long, and there is room inside it for waking and sleeping both. So if your eyes open, simply notice the dark, notice your breath, and let yourself drift back down without judgment. When morning returns, it arrives with small sounds first. A rooster, stubborn and proud. A door opening. A bucket being set down. Then light presses through the cracks in shutters and turns the room's smoke-stained air into pale ribbons. The household rises. Someone stirs the pot. Someone shakes out a cloak. Someone yawns and laughs at their own yawn. Life begins again, not because it is easy, but because it must. You step back onto the road with the village behind you. Today, the air feels different. Maybe a bit colder. Maybe the sky is higher and clearer. Maybe there is a hint of approaching winter in the smell of the wind. In medieval Europe, the seasons are not background. They are the schedule. They decide what can be planted, what can be stored, what can be traded, what can be survived. As you walk, you see how people prepare. A field is being harvested quickly. Hands moving fast, because a storm can ruin everything. A woman hangs bundles of herbs to dry under the eaves. A man mends a fence before the animals are brought in closer. In a ditch, someone digs to improve drainage, because wet ground in winter can mean sickness. These are not romantic details. They are the careful work of staying alive. The road bends toward a larger church again, perhaps a small cathedral town, a place with a bishop's seat and a market that runs more days than not. You see it from far away because the tower rises above the roofs like a finger pointing at the sky. Stone buildings gather around it. A wall or ditch may ring the town. Smoke rises in many lines. Birds wheel above the tower as if it has altered the air. As you enter, the sound changes. Cobblestones replace dirt. Voices echo between taller walls. A bell rings, brighter here, and it carries farther. The town feels more organized than the villages. There are more rules, more clerks, more officials. Yet there is also more shelter, more shops, more bread ovens, more wells, more places to rest. You wander toward the cathedral. The doorway is carved with figures, saints, kings, strange beasts in stone. The carvings have been softened by rain and fingers. Inside, the space opens like a cavern. The ceiling rises. Light falls through stained glass in colored pools. Blue, red, gold, green, moving slowly across the floor as the sun moves. In the side aisles, people kneel. Some are poor, some are dressed well. The stone does not care. It receives all of them. A choir begins to sing, perhaps for a daytime service, perhaps for practice. The sound lifts into the high space and turns into something larger than any single voice. Even if you do not share the faith, you can feel the human longing in the music. People have always wanted to be heard by something beyond themselves. They have always wanted to feel that their suffering is noticed. They have always wanted to believe that gentleness exists somewhere. even if only in a song. You sit in a shadowed corner where you can watch without being watched. Your body rests on a wooden bench. Your hands rest in your lap. Your breathing slows. The colored light touches your sleeve, then slides away. A candle trembles. Someone passes. Footsteps soft on stone. The cathedral is a place designed to change your sense of time. Minutes stretch. Thoughts soften. Everything becomes less urgent. When you leave the cathedral, the town's sounds feel quieter, as if your ears have been rinsed. You walk through streets where craftsmen work, a goldsmith tapping tiny shapes, a bookbinder pressing leather, a baker pulling loaves with a long paddle. The medieval city is not a museum. It is a machine made of people, each one doing a small part, each one relying on the others. Trade brings spices, wool, iron, salt. Law tries to contain conflict, faith tries to contain fear, and ordinary life continues in breath and footsteps as afternoon leans toward evening. You find a place by the town wall where you can look out over the fields. From here, the world seems calmer. The tower behind you is solid. The countryside ahead is open. You can see a road in the distance. Another pale ribbon leading to other places, other stories. You do not have to follow it right now. You can simply look and let your mind feel spacious. Now, gently, let the medieval scene begin to blur. Not because it is ending, but because sleep is pulling you inward. Imagine the wall beneath your hand becoming the edge of your own bed. Imagine the distant bell becoming a softer sound. Maybe the hum of your room, maybe the quiet of your home. Imagine the colored light in the cathedral becoming the dim light behind your eyelids. You have walked roads, crossed bridges, tasted bread, listened to chant, watched markets, sat by water, warmed your hands by fire. These are simple things, and that is why they soothe you. The body understands them. The mind can rest inside them. So let the story keep moving in the background. Like a river, you no longer need to watch. Let your breath be the only focus now. Inhale, slow. Exhale, slower. Feel your chest rise and fall. Feel your shoulders sink. Feel your forehead smooth. The medieval world is still there, waiting, patient, ready to return whenever you need it. And for now, you do not need anything else. Let the day's sounds fade. Let the last bell ring in the distance, then disappear. Let your thoughts become fewer, softer, quieter. Let sleep come the way it always comes in this story, calmly, steadily, and without hurry. Stay with the view at the wall a little longer. In the field below, a line of geese waddles, led by a child who's half watching them and half dreaming of something else. A man bends to pull a weed from the edge of a garden bed. A woman shakes a cloth from an upstairs window, dust turning into a brief cloud of light. These are the small movements that fill a day when no one is posing for history. If you turn back toward the town, you may notice how the light changes on stone. In the morning it is silver. At midday it is pale and honest. Now it is warmer, turning the cathedral's carvings into shadows and highlights, as if the building is slowly breathing. Medieval builders understood this. They knew that stone is not dead when light touches it. They carved stories into doorways so that the sun could read them every day. Those stories are not only for scholars, they are for ordinary eyes. A farmer who cannot read words can still read a sculpted scene of a saint carrying a child, or a king kneeling, or a monster defeated. Stained glass works the same way, but with color. A window might show a biblical tale in panels like a comic strip. A window might show the patron who paid for it, small and humble in one corner. A window might show a craft guild's symbol, because the guild wants to be remembered, and because memory is a kind of shelter. If you step inside again for Vespers, the evening prayer, the air is cooler now. The town's heat has faded. The last light leans through the glass at a lower angle, making the colors deeper. The choir begins, and the sound is different from the monastery's chant. Here it swells bigger, carried by the height. It is still slow, still repeating, but it feels like the building itself is singing along. The stone holding notes, the way a bowl holds water. You notice the people around you. A merchant kneels, hands rough from counting, eyes tired from bargaining. A young woman stands near a pillar, her hair covered, her face calm, perhaps thinking of a brother who left for apprenticeship in another town. An elderly man rubs his knee, then folds his hands, as if pain can be set aside for a few minutes. A child fidgets, then settles, lulled by the sound. Life does not stop for prayer. It only pauses, like a cart pausing to let a herd pass. When the service ends, people file out slowly. No one runs. The day's already taught them to be patient. Outside, the street lamps are few. Torches flare at doorways. Windows glow with candlelight like small amber stones. The town becomes a pattern of light and dark, and your body recognizes the pattern as bedtime. You find lodging again, perhaps in a pilgrim hostel near the cathedral, perhaps in an inn with straw on the floor and a common room that smells of stew. Someone offers you a cup of thin ale. Someone asks where you are from, and you answer vaguely, because in this story you do not need to explain your whole life. You listen to a conversation nearby about the day's news. A traveling merchant saw bandits on a distant road. A new tax is rumored. A Lord's messenger passed through at noon. The price of salt has risen. A child has recovered from fever. A fire burns in the hearth, smaller than earlier, because wood is precious. People warm their hands, then step back to make room for someone else. Kindness is often practical here. It is sharing a bench. It is passing bread. It is not asking too many questions. You feel that quiet practicality around you, and it makes your chest loosen. You do not have to be impressive. You only have to be tired. And being tired is common. Later, you are shown a corner to sleep. Maybe it is a narrow bed. Maybe it is a pallet on the floor. Either way, the blanket is rough and honest. You lie down and listen to the sounds of the building settling. A beam creaks. A shutter taps. A distant cough. A low murmur that becomes silence. In medieval towns, night has more sound than you might expect, but it is still a gentle sound, like a house breathing. And now, as you sink into that imagined sleep, you can let the layers of the story stack gently like blankets. First, the road, the bridgestones under your feet, the river carrying starlight. Second, the markets, the smell of onions and leather, the laugh of a storyteller. Third, the monastery, the bell calling the hours, the scratch of a quill. Fourth, the cathedral, the colored light moving slowly across the floor. Let these layers settle one by one, heavier and warmer, until they hold you down in calm. If your mind tries to jump back to modern worries, you can answer it with one simple image. Picture a candle flame in a windless room. It does not struggle. It stands. It glows. It makes a small circle of light. And in that circle, everything is enough. Your breath is that flame. Keep it steady. Let it be small. Let it be enough. Inhale, like drawing in warmth from the hearth. Exhale, like letting smoke rise and vanish. Inhale, like stepping into a quiet church. Exhale, like kneeling and setting down the weight of the day. The more you breathe, the less your mind needs to do. And remember, nothing is required of you right now. You are not asked to solve anything. You are not asked to plan tomorrow. You are not asked to be anyone other than a resting body with a resting mind. The medieval world, for all its hardships, understood one truth very well. Night is for letting go. So let go. Let the last voices fade. Let the last candle dim. Let the town fall silent behind its walls. Let the fields outside turn into darkness. Let the road become only an idea, a pale ribbon in your memory, and let sleep take you, steady and kind, as if it has been waiting for you all along. Before you fully disappear into sleep, imagine taking one last slow walk through the town's quiet street. The stones are darker now, damp with evening. A single lantern hangs by the gate, swaying slightly, its light making a small pool on the ground. You pass a closed store where a ribbon of cloth still flutters from the awning. You pass a workshop with the smell of sawdust trapped inside, and you picture the craftsman asleep. Hands finally still. At the edge of town you stop and look up. The cathedral tower is only a silhouette, but it holds the sky like a steady spine. Somewhere a bell rope creaks as it settles. Somewhere a candle is being pinched out. The world is folding itself away for the night. Carefully, like cloth put back into a chest, turn back. Find your bed again, and let your body sink. Let your breathing be the road home. One slow inhale, one softer exhale, another inhale, another exhale. The story can keep walking without you. You can rest now and drift down, deeper, calmer, quieter. You are safe. Sleep stays near.